They don't realize that the first thing you wanted to get in the powerlifting for was to have fun and get big and strong.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that I was in my own head, so I didn't really think about anyone else.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it right and have fun, and I just knew I had to go up in weight at a certain time. I was lucky that I was strong enough to be able to do it and didn't have to worry. When
people think of powerlifting and they think of Ed Coan, they're going to think of a lot of different things. The numbers are one of the things they're going to think of. You know, how much ahead of the second place competitors, another thing you're going to think of. I think the other part you already just touched on is you're always around the sport.
Your brain controls everything. If your brain doesn't have that pathway to keep doing it and doing it and doing it all the same all the time, how are you going to all of a sudden just turn it on and expect it to work?
What's going on, guys? Our guest today is Eddie Coan, and we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of questions that I have there. So I think we'll start will be, I want to try to give like a background, right? Because there's just Eddie Coan, the GOAT of powerlifting and so forth. What's that even mean? I want to put some context to that. So earlier today and yesterday, I went through openpowerlifting.org, and what I wanted to find was a couple things. How many world championships that you had, and then how long you stayed prominent. Where as I went through, I believe the first Worlds was in 1984.
Yes.
And that was at 181.
Yep, in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and with that one you won, because I think this has some relevance here when we're talking about the greatest of all time, legend status, whatever people want to say about that, which I know you don't give a shit about.
I don't care.
But in 84, you won by 50 pounds, but then as we go through, there's 85, 86, 87, right around 86, you went to 220s. And that's where I think you really were in your prime.
Yeah, that's where my leverages changed a little bit. I wasn't as lean as I was.
Yeah, there was a decade there of number one rankings. And in some of the years, it was kind of insane. Some of the years you were over this number second ranked person by 300 or 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Which is some of the years too, which was, I'm not 100% sure on this. I think your total in the 220s on some of those years were higher than anybody else's in the meet except maybe one super heavyweight.
Yes, they were.
You know, that's another insane fact when you go back and think about that here you are in the 220 class and you're out total in the 242s, the 275s. And a lot of times, most of the supers.
Yes.
The one time you weren't that far off for Ness.
No.
Like 50 pounds or something. And it was
there was one time, the highest total, regardless of body weight, I had, and I beat even in the APF, and that was from the USBF.
Yeah, and when I'm saying number one ranking here, guys, I'm talking the number one ranking for the year for the weight class, regardless of federation. You know, so that runs from 84 to 2004 with there's a couple of years where you didn't compete. We can talk about that or not, you know, it
was on a mandatory vacation.
Yeah, which kind of fall in there, but that's 20 years of dominating, you know, the weight class and even above that, where when one of the interesting things was when Dave Hoff was out, one of his objectives is he just wants to be in the conversation. And I asked him, like, well, what is that conversation? Like, what does that mean? Like to him, like, what does that mean? Like to be in that conversation of who's the greatest, which is, it's all stupid anyhow. It's just, you know.
Yeah, but he's done everything. So that's all he's got left to shoot for is just
time.
It's respect.
He wants
respect.
He wanted the time. He thinks that to be in that conversation, he needs more longevity. You know, so we're looking here at 20 years. You know, so then, you know, what I was talking to him about is, well, you got 20 years then. So where are you at? Now I think it's like 14.
I think it's more of the effect you had on powerlifting in the world for your time that you spent in it. And the effect I had was really, really great because of the numbers I put up. And I could go anywhere in the world and be known. I could do, you know, everybody knew who I was. But I mean, powerlifting was a little bit smaller. I mean, nowadays it would be crazy if I was that good equivalently. But we had the nationals and worlds every year. We didn't get to pick and choose meets. We didn't really get, except for like the Hawaii meet. If you were invited, you got to do that. But you still had to go to nationals to be able to go to the world championships and be a world champion.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we're going to definitely get into talking there. But getting back to the context here, when I look at all time, you're like, 198's weird because there's two 198 weight classes. Like one of them had two different weight classes because the USPF changed or the IPF changed. So one of them was kind of duplicated. But I believe in the 181s, you're like 22nd. The 98s, you're 5th and 6th, depending on which 198 class that you look at, which is, I know why that is. Most people probably don't have a clue why that is. That can be another conversation we can have later. 220 is at 2nd, 242, 5, 275, 4, those are that. So when people think of powerlifting and they think of Ed Coan, they're going to think of a lot of different things. The numbers are one of the things they're going to think of. How much ahead of the second place competitors, another thing you're going to think of. The time in the sports, another thing you're going to think of. Where I think the other part you already just touched on is you're always around the sport, even when you were still competing.
I think you had a line before about someone asked you about leaving powerlifting, and you said, I've never left. Yeah. It's always going to be in you because you love it.
Yes. I mean, you were at competing predominantly in USPF is where it started, then IPF. You were still at the multiply meets, cheering those people on. So you're everywhere. And even now I still get out. You still get out, and more so years ago, but it's harder to move around.
It's not because I want to watch a lot of the competitions. I like visiting all the people, all the friends, all the stuff. Like I only go to Arnold Classic. I don't really go to shows or watch that much powerlifting. I go to hang out with all the cool people that I met over the years. Yeah. It's the best time.
And I think that's what you're known best for now, is being the ambassador for the sport and being the person that's, above all the bullshit, which has kind of always been there, which is, it's always there, which is, that's the part I'm looking most forward to with this conversation moving forward is I want to go back and how did you get into the sport? So we'll just start there.
My first year in high school, I wrestled at 98. I was actually scared to go out for football because I was so small. I was 4'11", 98. And by the end of my sophomore year, I saw Kaz compete on TV in powerlifting. They still had it on TV. But I had in like 1980, I tried my first bodybuilding contest, and that's before they even posed the music. And like in the senior class, Lance Dreher was there. Sergio Oliva was at his biggest, and he was in the audience. And I took like 9th or something in my class in the teenage division.
What did you weigh? I mean, if you wrestled 90, not 198, 98.
I don't know. I was probably about 130 pounds.
Okay.
And then when I saw Kaz compete on TV, it was like a light bulb. Wait, I could be that big, be that strong. I don't have to diet all the time, and I don't have to pose on stage. I'm going to try this shit. And I maxed out twice a week with just a belt on till I hit 500 pounds in the squat. I still had like skinny little legs, bending over in the squat. And I just fell in love with it. It was like a duck to water.
And where were you training at the time?
I started off in my basement. Then I was at a Chicago health club, which ended up being Bally's. So it was a health clubbish. And then I ended up, when I got even more serious, I trained at a guy named Francis Rudiger in Joliet in his garage where a bunch of lifters trained.
How long did it take you from that first meet to be in that group of people?
1980 was my first meet. In 1984, I was probably a little over 150 pounds my first meet. By 1984, I was a full 181, and I won the IPF Worlds.
Yeah. I mean, you're fast tracking really.
It jumped really quick.
It came really fast, right? So you're training with a group of powerlifters, and they see obviously you have potential, and then they have to just dump you in a local meet because you have to qualify.
It was just my choice.
Yeah,
and I don't even know how I qualified. It could have been because the teenage nationals I took second in. I didn't know how to pick my numbers, and then I went to the YMCA nationals when there was only a couple federations, and Gary Benford used to run them. And that's how I believe I qualified for the nationals. And my first one at 165, Bob Wall from Ohio.
Yeah.
He had just won the IPF Worlds and set a world record in the squat, and I beat him.
Yeah. I used to train with Bob.
Yeah.
Right. So and he tells that story.
Yeah.
You know, because he was doing very well.
He was a great
squatter.
squatter.
Out of nowhere comes this fucking kid.
Yeah. I think we squatted around the same. I benched more, and then I pulled, I think, 683 at that meet or something pretty easy.
Yeah, and then just, goes
Then
up
it just
from
exploded
there.
when I gained a little more weight.
Yeah, so it's to put some context back into those meets then, right? So I started competing in 83, so I kind of know, not at the same level, but I know the equipment we had, and I know what was there, right? So for those that are trying to piece this together, powerlifting at the time did not have round systems, right? You just followed yourself.
Escalating weight, yeah.
Escalating weight. And there were good and bad associated with that. The racks, squat stands, at least for me, they were like fucking tires with a post on it. So when you walked out, you had to step like 2 extra steps.
You had to learn
around.
how to walk with the weight.
Yeah, you had to get around the base of the squat stand. It wasn't this 2-step thing. It was like 5, 1, 2, 3.
Unless you wanted to take a super close stance.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there was that obstacle there, and the bars were the same.
Just a Texas power type bar or whatever it was.
And the whip on the bars would start about 4 or 5, right around there. You had to start learning.
I remember on the way down with the squat, it was like Eddie Murphy in Raw. Oh, Lord of God, help me, please help me. Your whole body's shaking like this, and you almost got to stop on the bottom, let it settle, and then come back up.
You learn. I did. You at a much higher level. You learn how you got to be smoother coming out of the rack. So it doesn't have that chance. To bobble. Small steps, but still clear. Be tight, because if you didn't, if
you started too fast, it would start whipping right away.
Yes.
And you learn how to time the whip, the reverb or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. You time the way down and then back up. The benches were narrow.
Oh, that's murdering people's shoulders.
Yeah. So that was a weird situation there as well. And platforms didn't have carpet. It was wood. So it's, you would slip and, all that other kind of shit there. And there was at the time, maybe the AAU was around. For me, all I knew was the USPF. Yeah. Right?
I never competed in the AAU. It really was like way down and very obscure at that point. It was way smaller.
It was pretty much just the USPF, right? And that was it. And it wasn't, I don't know the exact year. At some point it split. And it was before I qualified.
The ADFBA started.
And then the APF, so those two migrated.
The APF really started in 85 after the Nationals. Ernie first started it as the AMPF to represent the Masters because they weren't getting as much credibility in the IPF. So he started it for the Masters. And then the regular open APF started in 85 after the Nationals.
Now, were you training with Ernie at that time?
I would go down on Saturdays and do my deadlift routine. When he had him, Dennis Reed, Bill Sino, who were all world record holders, most of those guys would do all 3 on one day. And I would just come and do my deadlift routine and all my assistants work.
Now, when that split happened, because I remember when the split, it wasn't really a split, but I remember when Louis was trying to decide between the APF and the IPA, and half the guys went one way, the other half went the other way. Was there pressure being put on you to go to the APF? Or
no one ever asked me to do anything.
Okay. So it was, you were just sticking with.
Yeah, I just went with some buddies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was, in other words, because that became a weird time, right? Because now you're going to have two worlds.
Yes.
Right. And you're going to have two nationals.
Well, it was one world's that was kind of real, and one world's that just had a few misfits in it, which was the APF at the time.
Yeah. Or WPC.
Yeah.
Right.
But I only went to have fun with my buddies. I just wanted to lift and have fun. I didn't care.
Okay. So as we move through getting like the mid 80s, you know, at what point in time did the round system come into play?
It was still there in 85 at the Nationals. It had to be 86 or 87 at the latest. It was right there.
How did that change your competitive strategy?
It didn't.
It didn't?
No. You just had to be in shape.
Yeah, but well, your squats would have been up there, right? So you would have been towards the end.
Yeah.
Right? So at that point you were following yourself, right? Or close to it.
Yeah. I actually had to do that in 84 at the Nationals that Pacifico ran. I had my first attempt was 749. And then Buddy Duke, who was 198, he went, and then I had to go right after him. And then I took 793, which weighed out to 791. And back in those days, the weight couldn't stop on the way up. And it stopped, and then I finished, and I got reds, and I had to follow myself and pull it again.
Which was what, 5 minutes maybe? 2 minutes? I don't even think
1 minute to call your attempt in and 3 minutes to go.
So yeah, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So you had, in that case, that scenario, you had all three attempts.
Yeah.
Within 15 minutes. Yeah. Right? Which is now the average time of a flight.
If it's actually longer than a whole, it's 15 minutes is, almost a flight. It can be.
Yeah. Where I remember watching like Dimmel, have to follow himself, and I suck. So I was at the beginning as a teenager following myself, thinking, man, if I could just get 50 pounds more, I could get 5 people in between me, which would give me more rest.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So you would never call like the even number, like never call 400, call 405. Because everybody else is going to call the 400, then you can go after. Mm-hmm. So there was that strategy.
You had to time it.
That kind of went
Hopefully
into that.
No one changed their attempt.
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, that's another factor that kind of played into that as well. When you were, so that would have been 80. So with that, did that change? Because when you're competing at that level, you're competing for placing and coefficients is all the shit that you're playing with. There's strategy involved.
There can be.
Yeah. So with you, there was just lift the fucking weight and just go. So it wasn't a part of that.
Didn't even think of it.
That makes it easy.
Didn't even think of it. Didn't care. I just got to lift, and that's it.
Now, what happened then when you went to the Worlds and you'd have people that would call the numbers for you? That's a weird thing.
They would discuss it with me first.
Okay.
No one gets to call my numbers without discussing with me because I paid my own way. I paid all. You don't pay anything. You don't get to call my numbers. I mean, even Doug Furness, when he coached me, he would come up and say, well, what do you think? Mm-hmm. And I would give him a recommendation, and he would say, okay, well, I think this is better. And I would just listen to him then. Okay. But as long as it's in the vicinity, I didn't care. When I showed up at a meet, I knew what I did in training and how it all felt. I knew how strong I was. When I got to a meet, I'm not in my own gym. I don't have my training partners spotting me. I'm on time restrictions. I've got judges. I had weigh-ins. I have all this other shit going on. Mm-hmm. And I would just be, okay, after my first attempt, what do I think I'm good for on the second? And then base my third on what I did after my second. It's only what I can do on the day. I didn't say, well, I squatted this in training, so I'm going to do this at the meet. Yeah. I never thought of that at all. I just thought, well, let me see what I can get. If I'm going to have a good day, I'm going to have a good day. If not, I'm going to make sure I win and just have a good time. Now, through most of your career, you also had 2-hour weigh-ins, right? For a lot of it, until I got up to somewhere into the 242s. They changed, but I was so light of a 242. Yeah, it didn't make any difference at that point. Yeah. I went in one meet above 242 when Nick Busick had one of his Mountaineer Cups. I told him to split up the weight classes so some other people could get some money. And I showed up weighing like 247, and I just didn't care.
So that would be the one time I think you were 275.
Yeah.
Right in there.
Yeah.
2001.
I don't even know the dates.
You know, something like that.
Yeah.
With your training, you know, people can look and they can find, what was it, the Coan Filippi, whatever it's program. It's you train basic linear.
That's actually
right?
Mark Filippi's routine. Mark gave it to me.
Yes.
And I didn't need as much work as he did.
Yes.
Probably because he was clean. And I was already set in my ways, and what I was doing was working. But I had given it to Josh Bryant to try, and it made his deadlift go up to 800. And then he attached my name to it, and it became...
Yes.
I still get ragged on by Mark Filippi for that.
Yeah. Well, I put it out there because if people search your training, that's typically what they're going to find first.
Yes.
Where your basic starting, let's go back to when you first started. The basic training protocol was just the classic periodization.
Yeah.
Right.
Linear, just straight
linear stuff. And so in the off season, would you work on building the raw part up, right?
Actually, only right before a meet would I put equipment on because it didn't change that. It didn't change me that much, and I really never wore a deadlift suit. My bench shirt I could put on myself because they were stupid back then.
Yeah.
But my off season was based on what I was weak at. So I would change my squat from a regular power squat to a high bar closer stand squat, and basically do the same routine. I would change my bench to taking a slightly closer grip with my feet up on the bench. And I would change my deadlift where I would be on a 2 to 3 inch deficit. And I would do either like 10 to 12 week stiff leg routines or conventional deadlift with no belt off a deficit. And that's the only shit I changed. But I found like what exercises I liked that my body liked, where it worked my weaknesses. And I just stuck with them the whole time. I never had to change my exercises. Not once. Because when I would change those exercises, you know, for the squat, bench, deadlift in the off season, I would come back and feel like a raging bull. I felt so strong because those little parts, all of a sudden my quads were stronger, my lockout was stronger, my start was stronger. I could because of less equipment and deadlifting without belt and stuff, all of a sudden my bracing and how I locked my back was all better. I only went by feel. I didn't learn anyone's technique ever. I just went by feel. When
you were coming, peaking for the meet, were the big numbers were typically 8s, 5s, 3s, and so forth.
Yeah.
So when you would start peaking, so let's say you're starting to get ready for the meet, in your mind, here's what your best 8 is. Are you trying to beat that best set of 8 for that next training cycle?
When I started getting strong, when I started getting ready for a meet to peak, I couldn't do the higher reps anymore because all of a sudden I'm handling 7 something for sets of 8 and you're going to be burned out in a heartbeat. So I would just do I would take like 3 weeks of 5s without knee wraps. Then I would put the knee wraps on and do 3 or 4 weeks of 5s. And that would elevate it up enough so I could get used to the weight and the shock of it. And I wouldn't have a problem with 3s and 2s.
All right, so it'd be 5s, a couple of rotations of 5s, one bare knees, then wraps, and then the 3s.
It was almost like, like people say, well, you're off season. Well, there's technically not an off season. It all works into one. It has a purpose.
Yes.
I never did anything without a purpose. Yes. Not one exercise without a purpose.
Yes.
When I made up a routine for a meet, I had every single weight, rep, set, and exercise figured out no matter what it was, and I never missed. I would write a routine out 20 times from the back end front to figure out if it was all going to be doable with every fucking thing, even my assistance work. Like my heavy assistance work, let's say bent rows, close grips, inclines, shoulder presses, stuff like that, heavy compound movements. I would treat them like I was peaking for a meet.
Yes.
And then all the other little stuff was just dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
So they would come down into the triples as well.
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks, you just pull them out, while you're kind of going back through there.
Yeah.
And basically just working that back the same way you would the main lift.
100%.
Like, here's the realistic expectation of the meet.
That's the thing, is almost every routine, I think, can work if you pick the right numbers.
Yes.
But you have to let your ego get out of it and pick them right for a number of years before you even lay down a base. So if, let's say my regular squat, my pause squat, my high bar close stand squat all get stronger. My deficit deadlift, my deficit stiff leg, my bent rows, my shoulder presses, my close grips, my inclines, let's say they all get better 4 or 5 times a year in each training cycle. What are you going to look like after 5 years? Wherever you get hit, there's a chunk of strength and muscle. And that's what I wanted to build. And like I said, I just went by feel and I took my time. And all of a sudden, it was like a snowball going down a hill.
Yes.
And it just kept picking up till it was a boulder.
Yes.
And I couldn't stop it.
All right. So after the meet, boom, there's meet day. First couple weeks after that, just time off. What do you do there?
I've tried to take like 2 to 3 weeks off, and then I came back and I felt horrible.
Yeah.
So usually right after a meet, you know, when I went up to 220, I was on the fat guy day, Sundays.
Yeah.
By Wednesday, I would do some light squats and light benches. On Fridays, I would do some light deadlifts, just enough for active recovery.
Yeah.
I was ready to go. You know, it comes down to being in shape and having great technique that fits your body. So I didn't feel like shit after a meet.
Yes.
You might be a little sore or, you know, that's about it. I wasn't injured. Nothing like that. I felt like I was ready to go again, but I knew I had to start over and lay down my base work.
Yes.
And get it back.
So then you pivot off of the low bar, move to the high bar.
And actually, because those were the days, a lot of them, either no drug testing, or if there was drug testing, you would be off, not taking anything. So by doing those other exercises that are your weak points, it takes your ego out of the game so you can actually train.
Yeah, well, that's a good point that you're making too, because if there is the drug testing, you're pulling off, a couple weeks, depending upon what agent you're using, right? You're pulling off. So those couple weeks after the meet, you're really not optimal. But your ego is the biggest thing I think that takes a hit on people. Yes.
So I would pull my ego out of it too.
Well, you're changing too. So you're going from the heavy singles and the triples, right?
To reps.
Then now you're going back to 8s, but you're also going from a low bar to a high bar. And your weight
with
is
a closer stance.
Yeah, and so how would you determine what weight to start that?
I knew where I started before.
Okay.
And I would just start a little bit higher.
Okay.
I didn't need percentages because I already knew what I did before.
Yes.
So you just have to up it a little bit.
Yes. And then each time through, it's the same game. Yeah. So you get 12 weeks out. Then you flip the exercises back?
It would usually be 8 weeks out, 8 to 10 at the most,
Okay, so when the 5s hit, right, that's when...
So it'd be like 7 weeks of 5s, 2 triple, 1 or 2 doubles. Sometimes there would be a single there, but it was just a single because I didn't want to take a double.
Yes. So you had the core movements, right? The inclines, the rows, stiff legs, stuff like that. When would you throw in other things after that? Just fuck around movements?
Well, I had a shoulder day.
Yeah.
I actually like behind the necks.
Yes.
That I think the problem they have with it is because they are already strong, so they try to do behind the necks that they're have a weaknesses somewhere and they try to go too heavy. And that's why they say, oh, don't do behind the necks. Yeah. You're just not conditioned or strong for it. So you just start low, but that's what I did. And I like that when my shoulder strength went up, my bench strength went up.
Because you're for those that who have followed your training and know your training, you had more accessories in your training than most do.
Yes.
The exception might be like Furness and Pazzanella and some of the other ones that were, really up there. But Furness not as kind of pretty much the same as what you were doing.
Yeah, a little bit. Doug had a problem with using chalk. His skin on his hands was allergic to chalk, so he would actually lose skin trying to deadlift. So he had to limit how many deadlifts he took before a meet.
Yeah. So when you went to, because all the routines that I've seen of, say, your deadlift day, right, I always kind of like this too, because the way I saw it is you never had to go very far. So you would deadlift, and then you would pull on your stiff legs on a 100-pound plate, which is basically the same bar. You just take the weight off, and it's right there. Then you would do bent rows, which is, as you're taking the weight off, you're just doing different exercises.
You really don't have to warm up that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you work up for your deadlifts, then take some plates off, do stiff legs, take some plates off, do the rows, and then it was kind of like onto the
some
work.
wide grip chins or something like that I used to be able to do.
Yes, and so and then those other days, right? So even with the chins are good in the rows and stuff. So I want people to kind of get what we're saying here, because I think they may have missed it. You're periodizing those as well, not the chin so much. Well, you probably were because you were weighting.
Not really, but I did use weight and go heavy sometimes.
So the bent rows did work down to 5s, and it worked down into the triples
and doubles
and
sometimes.
then doubles too.
Yeah.
And then, it would kind of just move out. And then the frequency of the week, right? So you had a heavy squat day, or your squat day, a deadlift day and a bench day, and then like the shoulder.
Then there was a shoulder day where I did wide grip benches on that day also.
Yeah, but there wasn't a heavy and a light squat day.
No, there was when I was lighter in body weight. When I went up in weight and the weights I was using in the squat were really high, I had to eliminate the light day because I wouldn't recover.
Okay. Now the big piece here is at some point throughout this career, those days weren't always going to fall the way that you had them wrote down, right? So it's a possibility, or you get a little injury or a little tweak. Yes, or I'm thinking more if it's 750 for 2 5s. Mm-hmm. You're working up and you realize real quick, this shit ain't gonna happen.
Didn't happen.
All right. So what was the decision that you made there? Did you go lower? Did you just stop? Did you just do accessories?
No, usually there's a reason. I really never missed in training.
Yeah.
I never missed. I wrote it out so many times, and I was so confident walking in that it's okay to be challenging, which I want, but I knew I could get the weight. So I never really missed in training at all. That's kind of unheard of, but that's how it's supposed to be planned out. If you're smart,
yes,
and you take your time and you like I said, you take your ego out of it, there's really no reason that you should miss.
Yes.
Life does get in the way,
yeah.
Especially if you have to work. And I was working at the time. I would just take that day off and come back the next day.
Okay, so you would know before you.
I would know beforehand that if I was mentally or physically beat.
Okay. Now, when you're laying that all out, so you know what realistically, that's a key word here, guys, realistically, where you realistically are going to be able to hit in the meet. So you're not, dreaming more or less.
Right.
There's a strong possibility.
It was more scientifically planned.
Yes, and I think that for the guys that have been competing, or girls that have been competing for a while, you kind of know on that competitive day if what you left on the platform. And there are those times where you have that lift and it was like all you took. That's like the big mind fuck. Yeah. Is when you have that one because you don't know, like, what the fuck?
That's when you can't have the evil thoughts come in your head.
Yeah.
I think the reason why people get smacked or they, sniff ammonia is it breaks a negative thought that's always going to be, because I think it's completely natural for you to have a doubt here and there in your head. But if it comes up when you're unracking the weight, now you're in a problem. So people used to like to try to offset that. I would just try to make everything exactly the same all the time, and I usually didn't have a problem because I had to walk out my squats. So the exact same steps to walk up to the bar, how I put my hands on it, how I wiggled underneath, how I squeezed tight, how I took my air, and how I walked were all the same.
And that started, I want to reinforce this into people's heads, that started with the bar, right?
Yeah.
Every rep you
exactly
took
the same.
Every single one.
Practice makes perfect practice. It's all really true.
Yeah, but what we see, right, and you've done enough seminars to know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Is people don't focus on those things until the work
they try to wait. Yeah, they try to wait till it's too late, and your brain controls everything. If your brain doesn't have that pathway to keep doing it and doing it and doing it all the same all the time, how are you going to all of a sudden just turn it on and expect it to work?
The walkout being a perfect example, right?
100%.
Because you have so many opportunities to do that with every warm-up set that you do over the whole year. That, yes, it can be impacted at a meet, things can happen, but it really shouldn't. It should be so ingrained that it's just step. You know, hell, now it's 2 steps.
Yeah, whatever. You know, and people find a way. It's and it's not my way was the right way for me. We've done a seminar together where we watch people lift, and we will say the same thing in different ways.
Yes.
And one of those things will identify in someone's head. And that's the way it works. It's like you'll tell them to do something and it'll work. I'll tell them to do something, it won't work. The next guy will be just the opposite. So we're working from, and you're going to find a way, but people don't want to do that. They want to just say, I'm going to do it the same way Dave does it, or I'm going to do it the same way Ed does it, and that's it. I'm not going to decide, well, maybe the other guy's way's better, or maybe I should be somewhere in the middle. And they don't experiment on themselves to find that sweet spot.
That's a great point. You know, that's where that auto-regulating, you know, the training and listening to as many people as you can. You know, it's weird in a way that there's so many schools of thought that it's like the dogma that this is all you can listen to. Meanwhile, you know, using the seminar that we did together as an example, I can be trying over and this isn't working. And it's like, you know, Ed, can you try to tell them what, you know, how to stabilize this fucking bar? And then you done. Like, okay, perfect. That's what we want. Yeah. Like, who gives a shit how it got there?
I don't care at all.
You know,
I learned so much from doing a workshop, from helping people, more than I ever did before.
Yes, because they're all different.
Yeah, they're all different in a fucked up way. That I have to find a way to make them lift how their own body want to lift, not the way Joe Blow on Instagram lifted.
Yes.
That they try to copy.
Yes, which is weird.
Yes.
Right. So that's a whole other conversation going there because they're not even looking at their own body mechanics.
No, you got to learn you.
Yeah.
And with the body mechanic thing, you know, Dr. Bo Hightower, the guy that with the big mallet that does all the stuff. I was there a few times at Jackson Wink, and I was in his office and I was looking at a magazine, a medical magazine, and they had 5 MRIs of hips, and all the angles were just tiny bit different. And I was like, you know, like the big light went off in my head. I was like, well, that's the difference between a high bar, a low bar, a squat shoe, a flat shoe, a wide stance, a closed stance. That's the hand space. That's all the difference right there. So you can't always go by what's on the outside. You have to go by how does it feel. And then you go by how does it look. We can watch someone because of experience, because we grew up in gyms, and we can know how it feels on them, which is that's a pretty special talent when you know how it feels with you're not even lifting. And that's the advantage of experience. But that's what I want to teach people to do it, that I don't ever have to help them again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And leverages, I mean, body weight changes all this too.
Yeah.
I mean, so it can be it can be one way at 181 and another way at 242.
It's a big difference.
You know, it's a huge difference. Getting back to your peaking for the meets, what on average would you calculate your, let's say, a training single to the competitive single? Because you're not taking the weights in the gym.
When I did a 1019, I took 970 or 981 for one, because I didn't want to take it for double that day. I just didn't feel like it. But all the work I did before that is what.
So 40, 50 pounds is what you would kind of figure. Yeah. I mean, you figured something in there, right? So you weren't.
It's weird. You know, everyone says, you know, the percentage this, the percentage that. Your percentage, like the percentage that you lift on the concentric portion of the lift, is different than what your percentage is on the eccentric. And then when you throw in a walkout, what does that kind of wrench throw in it? What does not being at home throw into it? So sometimes it's like, you know, 90, if like 1018 or 19, if it was like 970, that's like, you know, what, 90, whatever, high percentage, so like 96%, which would be unheard of. You don't have to go that heavy. But when you throw in all the other stuff that I was good at, it wasn't a problem, because all the other stuff was easy to me to set up.
Yeah. And that's not taking into account what could have been after that 10-17.
Right.
Right.
Because that was a pretty easy lift.
Yeah. So you could have smoked it. So, it could have been this other whole variable where, it's when trying to help lifters, when they're trying to total things, it's say they say that I want to total 2,200 pounds. So well, you need to be strong enough to do 2,400.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality of the sport.
Because of the variables.
You can miss something. There's going to be the variables.
You're not at home. You got a time restraint.
Yeah. All these things come into play where, yes, the 9 for 9 days happen. Not often, but they happen. And a lot of those happen with adjustments.
Yes.
So it's not like the perfect day might happen once or twice. Actually, did you ever have the perfect meet?
Yeah. When I was at 220 and I totaled 2,400, and it was one of the old squat suits. Walked out at the USPF Nationals, no bench shirt, no deadlift suit, with a regular bench bar for the whole meet because it was IPF run, and drug testing that I passed. And I squatted a real easy 959, which weighed out because they had to weigh everything afterwards, 962. I benched 545 pretty well. And on my second attempt, I called for 898 to make sure I totaled 2,400 first. And it just so happens that it weighed out to 901. Thank God. And I tried 920 afterwards. Well, 920, whatever it would have been. And I was just mentally gassed. I pulled it up like over my knees and then put it down. It was done. I was done. I was up so high after that it was done.
Is there anything that happened with that meet you could point back and say, this is why it was such a good day?
I think I was at the peak of my 220-pound weight class. I think if I would have tried to go another meet after that at 220, it might have been not as favorable results because I knew when I started getting a little too lean at a certain weight class that I should go up in weight just to save my body so I wouldn't rip shit.
Yes. That's a huge...
Rip more shit than I already had.
That's a good point because we see that happen more with like 148s, 130. Like Brian Schwab comes to mind. He would stay in those classes and Al Cazo said, there's a bunch of them. And they'd stay in the class. It's just a little bit too long. And it's like, you're not getting any better. It's getting worse.
They get record crazy.
Yes.
And they don't realize that the first thing you wanted to get in the powerlifting for was to have fun and get big and strong.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that I was in my own head, so I didn't really think about anyone else.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it right and have fun, and I just knew I had to go up in weight at a certain time. I was lucky that I was strong enough to be able to do it and didn't have to worry.
And it seems like you felt that before it worked against you.
I knew when it was time to move up.
Yeah.
Before the meet, before I went up. Yeah.
Where I think with a lot of others, it's a little delayed. It's a couple meets delayed. Then when they do, what do they always say? Like, oh shit, I've done it.
Why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, because sometimes they become way better.
You are not going to do anything really, really well unless you love it. And when you start missing or you start getting aches and pains and it's too hard to make weight, it's not fun anymore and you're not going to do it as well. Your brain tells you it's not fun. So it's not going to perform as optimally. I was with Ken Kanakin one time in Chicago and he had just got done doing some, he was listening to some seminars on a lady talk about all the brain, everything, how the brain is the start of everything. And if your brain is not happy, you're not going to perform the way you should or the way you want. So I just always just listen to that shit. My own voice.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I respect you for from following you over the years is you have your standards in your head, of the sport. So, and for those that are listening that are, bitching about powerlifting and how the politics and all the gear changing and all the other bars and all this other, this has always been the case. Always been going all the way back to the 80s.
I am very happy with the way I performed to the standards that I liked.
Yes.
I'm not ever going to go back. My lifts are beyond reproach. That's what you want. Because you have your own honor. You have your own morals. Why would you go against that? I squatted in one of those WPO meets. Yes. I won 11 grand one day. And I did a 1038 squat, which was the highest squat ever in the whole world, regardless of body weight. And I know I cut it a little bit. And Doug Furnace was helping. He goes, just cut it a little bit. They're going to give it to you. And they gave it to me. I don't count that one because it wasn't up to my standards. I count the 1019 that I walked out and dunked. I don't count that one because it just didn't make me, it made me 11 grand for the one day, which is great, but it wasn't up to my standards that I liked, even though it was, okay to the judges. I didn't like it.
Well, I think that's what kept you and keeps you out of those political type conversations. Because a lot of the things that happen throughout the sport of, here, go to the APF because they're not going to do drug testing, right? Or, the bars going from, I remember going from the Texas Power Bar to the Pasanella Bar, and at the time, like, oh my God, this is unfucking believable. This is the greatest thing in the world.
Feels so
right?
good.
But when you're in it, this is where, when it comes to the drama and, the shit associated with powerlifting, you can never really blame the lifters, right? Because when they're in it,
if they're having fun, I don't care.
Yes.
I really don't care. The problem arose when Michael Sung came up with his list.
Yes.
He put everybody on the same list, and that was wrong because you can't compare drug-free, drug-tested, non-drug tested, equipment, no equipment, all this other shit. And that kind of got animosity more amongst the lifters. And then all of a sudden, the list kind of went away, and then you realize, wow, this guy's great. This is a lot of fun. I would go to, like you said, equip meets. They're lifters.
Well, it's come back, though, in a way because of the different formulas that they have now. The master's formula, the women's formula, the men's formula, there's all that. But that's just kind of reinforcing my point that it's always there, it's always going to be there. And you never gave a fuck.
No, why are you doing it? You're doing it for yourself to have fun. Are you having fun? Yeah. Then why the fuck are you worried about that guy?
Yes. So all that stress that could have been isn't. Yeah. Because you're just performing to whatever standard you want. That's yours. Somebody else can have a completely different standard.
It's a choice.
Yes.
You made a choice.
Yes.
Stick by your choice. Have fun. You think that other guy that you say squatted high, you think he cares what you think? No, he's having fun. Let him have fun. It doesn't mean he's a bad guy. I remember, I used to tease Anthony Oliveira because I knew him back before he even came to Westside. I met him at a seminar I did for Brian Silphy up in New Hampshire. And when he came over to Westside and he was doing all the big squats, I would talk to him and razz him a little bit, and he would call me a depth Nazi. But I was never not friends with him. Why do I care? Did we compete in the same meet? Did he take my record? No. Why the hell do you care? His life doesn't do anything. It doesn't have an effect on me what he lifts. If you let it, then you're a smaller person and you got problems.
Well, there you go. I think that's the key takeaway, right? Because a lot of lifters will feel like attacked or whatever it is because, this lift is done at a different standard than this lift, so be it, whatever federations it is, what it is. But if as you said, that nobody's making millions of dollars doing this, and over a period of time, we can debate what a world title even means anymore, right? I mean, as you talked about with the all-time list years back, now you can start debating what that even means, right? And now with the way everything's scored, it all goes into one, open powerlifting, so it all dumps into there. So this heavy dilution, I guess, makes it people all have to go back to what's the most important, right? Which is, why are they doing it? Have fun doing, and then why are they doing it? And then that reduces their stress, drama,
their anxiety, feeling less of themselves.
Yes.
That they feel they have to attack someone. Every federation is going to have lifts that are questionable, or even, you look at them and you say, well, that was high. Well, ooh, that deadlift wasn't locked out. It's going to happen. And I saw some recently, and it doesn't bother me that much. I may say, well, it was, but what is it? It doesn't bother me. Fuck, it doesn't have an effect on my life. I wish whoever did it the best. I hope they don't get hurt, and I hope the next day they come out, they do it better. But I don't wish anything bad on anyone. People do that all the time, and it's just stupid.
I don't get it either, because if the blame is to be put anywhere, it should be on the judges and the federations, you know, for not withholding the standards that they said. A lot of times,
it's going to happen here and there anyway.
Of course.
Who cares? I judged a big super heavyweights raw bench once, and I gave him a really, really fast clap, up press signal, and I regretted it for a long, long time. Actually, he tried a bigger weight, and he almost made it, and it just tipped forward. I was so pissed because that weight would have been perfect, but now I'm stuck with the guy that gave this guy a faster clap than he should have got, and I regret it. And that's me giving a bad call, and it was my fault. It's going to happen based on stress, on everything. You're worried about something snapping. You're worried about, it's just going to happen. It's not really a big deal. It's just going to happen. It's part of life.
Well, it's part of life. It's part of the sport. Yeah. And it's worse things can happen. Yeah. Right. And you were on the receiving end of some of the worst shit that could happen to anybody in the sport.
Yeah. If I would have gave him too long a call and he got hurt, now that would have been horrible. And that would have been on me. So if the worst thing is he got a lift that was questionable because I gave a fast clap, I'm okay with it.
When you're doing seminars or in the gym or whatever, what are, over the years, I don't want to say sticking points, technique, things have changed, like throughout each decade. It's like it's weird, right? Like the main thing is...
No, people's perception and how they explain it has changed, but they all still have the exact same problems that they did, because it's still a squat, it's still a bench, it's still a deadlift.
Yes.
So all the same problems are going to exist. It's just how people explain it. Some guys are really, really good at it, and some guys want to tell you 10 different things to fix one thing with activation and this, and there's a weakness here, or this. When all it takes is, well, I want you to squeeze your lats, pull your elbows down, and pick your sternum. Okay, now it's fixed. Now you do that for 100 reps, and now you'll be perfect. You can't just all of a sudden, so many people say, well, I tried sumo and I sucked at it, or I tried conventional and I sucked in it. And they never did either before, but they all of a sudden just try to put a bunch of heavy weight on it and try it. They didn't learn it. Their body didn't know how to do it. They don't want to put in the work before they actually do it. I mean, how many people say they try to do things and they never do? All of them. I tried to diet. I tried to do this. I tried this. Yeah. It's just an excuse for not doing, because you didn't do it. Put some time and effort into it, and effort being the key word, and you'll get fine. But do some fucking reps. You're not going to learn it by going heavy, because you're put yourself in a bad spot to try it already. It's not going to work. Start light, work your way up, learn the movement, and they don't do that.
It's kind of funny you brought up that with the sumo and the conventional, right? So if sumo's cheating, then if you were modified sumo, what is that?
I am I didn't get caught cheating. Yeah. And I only did modified sumo because I got legs like a Oompa Loompa. I got short-ass legs. I didn't feel good going wide, but I always did conventional too, and I like to be strong. And if I did too much sumo, excuse me, it affected my back strength. My back got weaker. So I would do conventional, heavy ass, all the way up to 6 weeks before meet. I would do 6 weeks of sumo and some light conventionals afterwards to keep that strength. That's all I needed. I knew my deadlift peaked way faster than my squat.
Mm-hmm. Well, your modified sumo just reinforces what you were saying earlier. Figure out what works best for you.
It felt good.
Yeah.
Find what feels good. Like people send me videos and say, I did the Eddie Coan sumo stance. You're not built to do that stance. Don't try it. You're doing a stiff leg deadlift. You need to do this.
Yes.
Okay, now send me a video of you doing a conventional. Now, conventional is your lift. You should not do sumo. Maybe as an assistance exercise to strengthen your adductors. That's it. That's not your lift. You're not built the way you lift for that lift. Learn. They don't want to take the time to learn a lot.
Do you think that's any different with the generation of lifters now than it was the generation of lifters, say, 20-some years ago?
I think a lot of the guys now do a lot more volume in squat, bench, and deadlift, where their squat, bench, and deadlift technique-wise is really good, but a lot of them don't do a lot of extra assistant work that will benefit them in the future. Like they'll get really strong, but at a certain point, there's going to be a weakness that's going to show up with enough weight and it's not going to be good. So we all have our natural strength no matter what.
Yes.
We all have our natural weakness. If this keeps going up, which is really easy, your strength, and this doesn't go up, there's too much of a gap there where all of a sudden you're done. Something will snap or you won't make gains anymore. It's like picking numbers for a meet. And if you pick the wrong numbers at the start of training, by the time you're 70% of the way through, which could be your powerlifting career, you start missing or you get hurt and you say, this routine sucks. Nope, you sucked. You didn't take the time.
Or I mean, you could start your prep or whatever you want to call it, right? With weights that are too heavy.
Yeah, a non-realistic.
Yeah, so then it ends up biting you in the ass, right? To where
before you get done with the cycle, and then you're screwed. There's almost no way to come back from that when you're already peaked out. Not for optimum. You can back off a couple of weeks and then try to do a couple little heavy weeks, but you're not going to be at the same spot. That's why I took my time and I wrote it out 20 times.
Well, I see that happen a lot, right? Where it's also kind of, it's a little bit of a gauge of how effective the off season was, right? Because they should be in a better spot, at that position, a little bit better.
Definitely.
And it should exponentially get a little tiny bit better each week going in.
But every little thing got better over your body. So as a whole, you become a bigger package that can handle more punishment, more weight totally, with less adverse effects.
Yes. So with the movements that you found, because they didn't change a lot.
No.
Okay. Where it had to take some time to figure out which ones they were. Or you just stumbled across finding the right ones from the very beginning.
From the very beginning, I used to be way more of a back squatter because I just short legs and a longer torso. So I knew I had to make my back stronger. So I just destroyed my back all the time. I made it less weak. What does Duffin say? Anti-fragile.
Yeah. So that's where the rows and the stiff legs.
But I worked the shit out of them. Like I said, I treated those like I was getting ready for a meet. And it just worked out. And I mean, I think it worked out a combination of I figured out what I was weak at and what exercises would help. And then I picked the right numbers and I was realistic. And then after that, I just took my time, and it's really easy because then it's enjoyable for a long time.
Well, yeah, that's where some of the questions were wrapped around longevity, and I assume what they mean by that is longevity as the competitor and the number of years that you can compete for, where the answer to that's pretty apparent. You just take a long time. Take
your time and enjoy the process, because the process won't ever cheat you if you do it right. And then you enjoy it all the time because you're always feeling good. You're not missing. You're just taking your time. And as your body changes, as you get older, we change. I don't do real high reps on a lot of things anymore. I do it more for movement and being able to explode fast. And I don't worry about the weight. I worry about the effort I put into that set. It was like a little bit heavier speed training. And that's kind of what Mark Filippi's routine was kind of based on when Louis first came out with some of those Russian programs for squat, like 10 sets of 3, a minute and a half apart. Then I used to do that routine. I did that routine twice in the off season. And then I took 8 weeks to get ready for the USPF Nationals one time. And I remember I hit 3 squats and 2 of them were world records. And after the last one, I was sitting in the seat just like this. I was in so fucking good shape that it didn't matter if I followed myself or not. I was just in shape. That got me in shape because of what I did in the off season.
Yes. The conditioning. So it wasn't more so for the
right amount of work.
Yeah.
The right amount of work. And it worked.
With, I don't know how I'm going to try to frame this. A lot of lifters that do this for a long time, and we've seen this, we've gone through it, have a hard time of knowing when to put it in the
back off
past.
a little bit.
Just when to know that they're done, right? You know, and how did you know that? You know, it's for a lot of us, it's the injuries that kind of the sport tells us we're done. Yeah. You know, was that the case for you, or was it a decision?
I started having pain in my hip, and I kind of knew what was coming. So I said, this is going to be my last meet because I'm not going to go out like a boxer that's too old that can't fight anymore. I want to go out being good and not a travesty. That was it. And I knew it. I didn't, I wish I could have, but I'm pretty glad I quit.
It's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, like, you know, I can still long to feel heavy weights because I know exactly what it feels like still in my brain. But I know I just can't do it, so I just accept that and try to put in effort. If I can put in effort with a full range of motion with no pain, I'm good. I'm really good and happy. I don't have to prove myself anymore. And it took a while to get to that point because we miss it, and it was such a part of our lives, and we start attaching our ego to that like it's part of you.
Identity.
And that'll ruin you. And finally I was able to just relax and laugh. I can laugh at myself now.
Oh, I know. Now, when you say effort, I assume what you're talking about is like having to grind that rep to finish it.
Yeah, some amount of force and intensity that I can still put into it, even if it's lightweight. But if I can move it, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, with that little aggression, you know. Like you go
a little oomph.
Yeah, that
testicular fortitude.
I think. Yeah, I think that's kind of like in the blood. You know,
yeah,
that
it is.
That's.
And I do think a lot of the way I trained when I was younger is the way I should train when I'm older a little bit. I should go back to being more basic and relaxed about the training and not have to worry so much about the numbers. And I did it, and I don't. You know, I do like a little bit heavier bodybuilding now, where I'll do some bodybuilding exercise, but I still squat and do some form of bench and some type of deadlift. And I just put some effort into that and then have fun with everything else. Get a little pump, handle a little more weight, and I'm good. I'm freaking 59 years old. I don't need to be doing that. I don't need to prove myself anymore. And it's
no, but can you see yourself not doing it at all?
No. That's prison. I would be locked up. That's, you know, there's no way I wouldn't know what to do with myself. And I would be miserable.
Yeah.
I would be a total cocksucker if I did that. So, and that's not just because I'm Eddie Coan. It's like if you got as good as you can get, that's fantastic. You just fulfilled whatever you wanted to do. Why do you compare yourself to anyone else? You know, I don't do that. I don't do that at all. I never really did. I think at the beginning, but I quickly got out of that because I just started to love it so much that I realized that I'm doing this for me to make me feel really, really good. So that's all I worried about the whole time.
At the level that you were at and the level that you competed at, obviously it was your number one priority. you know, so there's other people that are making a lot of sacrifices for you to be able to do that. You know, there's choices and decisions that you're making for you to be able to do that. And when you've been in that mental space, right, and then you leave that as you're looking into different business ventures, like we've been talking about, some of the other things that's going on, is there a little part of you that worries that you might go into that mental space with those ventures and that you don't want, because you know what that 100% commitment entails?
I don't think I would, because I know I'm not going to be as good at those other things as I was at powerlifting. There's no way. Like, you know, we talked about my new venture, and I've got really cool partners with it. So I don't have to worry. And we'll see what happens.
That's one of the things that I worry about with myself a lot of times, is if I start doing something, you know, is that it's OCD.
You become
obsessed. Or
obsessed with it, yeah.
I guess the word would be obsessed, if you just want to be honest about what it all is. It'll
consume you bad.
It can be, you know, it's, I mean, I think everybody would agree. There's good and bad associated with being at that level.
But when you went through your bad, you had to go through that to learn, and what you got after that is pretty damn good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's always, yes.
I mean, Dave, you're known throughout the world. I can plug you a little bit too. You're known throughout the world, and people wouldn't talk about you if you didn't have a very, very well-run business with people that are really nice, and you wouldn't get anywhere if you were a dick. We talked about on that car ride. It's just don't be a dick and people will like you. It's really easy. You know, what I lift on the platform is gone after the platform. Now I'm just a regular idiot like everyone else. I don't know how to change the oil in my car. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to run a business. So how am I better than anyone else? I'm not. Now I'm just your buddy and let's laugh.
Yeah.
That's it. It's easy. And that's the same concept I'm like with the new business. I want to talk about my new business.
Let's do it.
Myself and my partners are opening up a business in Buchanan, Michigan called Boone Labs. And it's a processing lab and a grow for weed. And I kind of just fell into it. And I do once in a while try some gummies. I'm just not into smoking anything. And I sleep better and have less pain in the morning. And if you have less stress on your body and on your mind, you will live a lot longer. So yeah, I do think it can definitely help a lot of people, especially, I mean, we know people that you'll look at and you say, you should smoke some pot. You need some pot. You need some, whatever it is, a gummy, whatever it is. And, so that's what I'm getting into, and I think it's going to do really, really well.
Do you think that would have helped you back in your powerlifting prime?
No, I didn't have that much pain or anxiety. I was compulsive obsessive, and I think that worked for me. And when I was done with powerlifting, I knew I was done. But now, when you can't do that, but you want to do it, it's hard to turn off. And especially when you have a little pain, that kind of tells you, no, you shouldn't do it, even though you still really want to do it.
Yeah. And many times do.
Yeah. Before bed, a gummy or half a gummy will relax me and take away a lot of pain. And that's all I care about. That's all I care about. Some people need it for anxiety. Some people need it for whatever other reason. But it's the same thing. The abuse of anything can fuck you up. I mean, it's not like Spicoli at Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah. Are there any other things that, knowing what you know now, looking back at your powerlifting prime, that you, I don't ever like to ask the question.
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like, with the powerlifting part, I probably would have sought out a couple people to help me peak a little better for the contest, and learn more about like the mobility and the stuff that people do now. Is some of it, there's a few, you know, MDs and chiropractors that are really freaking good at it. And that might have helped, maybe. For sure, I don't know. It's more relative now.
Yeah,
because I need it.
Yeah, I know it's tough, right? It's
needed. But I did really, really well. Where I don't know if that would have, if it would have extended my career in powerlifting. Maybe I just would have got hurt with more weight, or worse hurt. Because at a certain weight, you're not going to have a little tweak. Mm-hmm. It's going to be something big.
Well, you were also, I don't want to say surrounded with, because that's probably not the case, but you were also inundated with a lot of people who really knew what they were doing in exercise science with Weider and, all these other companies with, I'm sure many of them trying to tell you what you could do better at the time.
A few, Fred Hadfield used to do that all the time. I used to stay with him when I went out to Weiderville.
So how would you navigate the suggestions that he would have with what you thought you should do and pick and choose?
If what I was doing was working, I would just say, oh, really? Yeah, that's nice. Mm-hmm. And then go back to what I was doing because it was working.
Yes.
I tell everyone, even young kids, as long as you're growing, as long as it's working and you're not doing anything stupid, don't listen to anybody. Don't even listen to me. I'm not even going to make a suggestion to you. But if your form starts getting fucked up or you're not recovering or your lift starts stagnating, then we have to change something. Mm-hmm. But not until then. I don't tell anyone their business if their lifts are going up because everyone's different and they do things differently than I did and still make progress. So, that's it.
Well, if your focus is on, you're moving forward.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's very hard to move you off that focus if it's working and you're moving towards where you want to go. Again, why change it? Which is the same thing I'll tell.
Yeah, because I feel good and wow, your lifts are going great. And then I'll look at their technique, and even though it's different than mine, if it looks fluid and all the things are kind of moving right, I won't change it because then you realize that that's them. When
you're looking at, let's say you're looking at that technique, do your eyes? We're looking at a lot of different things, but do you look at the bar path first, or do you look at their body structure mechanics
I look
first?
Up how their setup is. I think about 90% or more of a lift that's missed is because of improper setup, right when they sit up and right when they start to move down. That's the whole thing of it. And because you got to put yourself in the right position where your body will cooperate with your mind to do it right and make it feel good. Then it's ready to perform optimally right away. If something is a little bit off, as soon as you start to come up, you can't make an adjustment with a heavy load on your back. It's almost impossible.
So to reel that back, you're talking about in the squat. So you're before the squat, everything that happens before the squat command is the most important.
Yes, 100%.
And then if you're to walk that through your head, say you're squatting, what does that look like? How do you verbalize that?
I watch how they get under the bar and what they do right when they get under the bar. Sometimes some people just set it on their back and take it off. Well, you haven't locked everything in with your shoulders and lats. What I try to do is take every muscle from the lower part of my neck to my lower back and squeeze it into my spine, especially the lower lats. So when I don't have people lift their chest, I have them pick up their sternum lower. That locks in your lower lats. And once they do that, as soon as they take off, they should already be braced. Because like I said, once you get that heavy load on your back, it's hard to brace and it's hard to do things to make that lift go the way you want with proper setup. So like if I have a heavy load on my back and I walk back and I'm not braced, then I try to brace, you're not going to be in the same position as you were if you did it at the start. Mm-hmm. So right when you go down, most of the time you'll hit the bottom and it'll fall forward a little bit. It's usually because of a brace. Mm-hmm. A lot of people brace at the beginning, and then by the time they get down to the bottom, they don't brace anymore. They don't think about it anymore. They don't think about squeezing it anymore. That'll be boop. That's when you fall forward. Mm-hmm. And if your everything isn't tight enough on the top end, those are the two things.
Walk me through what that is for a bench press then. Because the setup there's a setup there.
It's all similar, and for me to keep it simple, I just raise my sternum as high as I can from here, and it starts locking everything up, and I feel my back tighten. If I can do that, and then when I let the weight down, I don't let it down, I'll pull it down with my lats even more. So it's creating more and more tension. And then when I get down to the bottom, I can sit there all day because I'm that tight. But if something happens where you lose that brace or you lose anything, that's going to happen right away. You can't manage it. You're done.
So what are you doing before the bar comes out of the racks?
I take my shoulders and I'm wiggling them.
Same thing.
Pulling, yeah, I'm doing almost the same thing I do in the squat.
Okay.
Now, if you were to pick yourself, do a standing curl with a barbell, your sternum has to be up. An overhead press, your sternum has to be up. A deadlift, your sternum has to be up. A bent over row, your sternum has to be up. It's kind of your mind putting everything in the right spot to keep it safe. And then if it's safe, it's comfortable, and you can lift a lot of weight because you're in the right position. So the sternum up thing is the most important thing for me. And then it's bracing. Even when you bench, you should lock your abs a little bit, or else it will affect your back.
The deadlift then. The setup.
The deadlift is cool. I'll walk up to the bar. I'll put my shins against the bar, even though it'll move out a little bit when I go down. I will squat, then bend over. I don't bend over to the bar because then your butt sits up way too hard. It's harder to get it down. So I'll bend my hips to get down to the bar, grab the bar. As I'm pulling the slack out, my wiggle is actually, I'm wiggling myself in closer to the bar. What that does is it activates your hips. So your butt's working right from the very beginning. And then as I pull more slack out, that's when I'm pulling my sternum up and I'm locking my lats in tight. So now, even if the weight's heavy, I don't bend over because everything is working as one unit. So like, even though you got an upper body and lower body, I'm making them work together because they're locked in. And you know how, like, when you get up past your knees, people yell hips, hips. My hips are already working. They're already working from the bottom all the way up. The problem people have with their hips is they use their hips too late. So the weight is traveling at a certain rate of speed. People usually say hips when it's over your knees. Well, you got to say hips when it's below your knees, because by the time the weight gets over your knees, that's when your brain's going to want to use them. So it's just a timing issue.
Okay.
So that's all it is. If I activate my hips on the bottom, my sternum's up, I got the slack pulled out, my whole body is like a rubber ball. It's ready to just jump. And then boom, up, and then hips right away.
So when I look at the accessories that you used, right? The high bar, it's basically reinforcing the same things.
Yep.
Right? The bent over row is reinforcing the stiff leg, is reinforcing the close grip, is reinforcing
all of it.
So all those accessories outside of just being exercises for the lats, triceps, whatever it is, it's reinforcing the mechanics.
What has to be used in order to keep you in the right spot.
Yes. So it's more repetitions, though, of how to get yourself into the best starting
and heavy
position.
Like when I did bent over rows, I would normally, unless we were like into the 500s, I wouldn't use a belt at all. And I would never let it touch the ground. What that did is it made my abs have to brace and my back have to move at the same time and stay braced, which is what happens in the squat or the deadlift. So I tried to kind of mimic those feelings on exercise. And you're not going to get that by doing lightweight. You might get really pretty cute little muscles, but you're not going to get the thick structural strength that you need to be able to last. Did you ever throw your back out?
Yeah.
I relaxed on the bottom of I was standing on one of the old time big fat 100-pound plates with no belt. And I pulled a pretty easy 837 with no belt for a double. And I relaxed on the bottom on the second one. And the iliosacral ligament that runs down there, it stretched out. And that was a lot of pain for a long, long time. And it was just something little, but that's all it takes because you're using heavy weight.
Yeah. How did you mitigate and work around that?
I just did electrostim constantly. If I tried to stretch it, it aggravated it. I didn't need to get adjusted because it wasn't out. I just stimmed the crap out of it for a couple of weeks, like 4 times a day.
Well, with your training, did you back it down?
I backed the deadlift off a little bit, but everything else it didn't affect.
Okay.
You know, one time deadlifting, I tore what the muscle behind the knee. What is it? Popliteus. I tore a little chunk out of that. So I call up Dr. Salaria. You know, he was one of the ones that started the ISSA with Fred Hatfield. And he said, do this, this, and this. Okay, this is what it is. All right, it's Friday, you deadlifted. Monday, you'll be okay, because when you wrap that, you won't even feel it because it's really for stability. So when you wrap that, it'll take it off. Mm-hmm. It was fine. Like you said, I had really good people I could talk to.
Yeah. So most of the injuries that you had, you were able to train through.
Yeah, even, you know, I was benching with a pause, raw, 475 at 181. And I thought, well, 2 days is good. Why don't I go to 3 days, have a heavy, a medium, and a light day? Sure enough, I did 445 for 3. And on the second set, about right here, I felt, and it just went, tendon stayed intact, but it took my bench down, you know, 25, 35 pounds. And you learn. Yeah.
Some of the stupidest shit that you've seen, you know, competing, traveling to meets, because you're competing with a lot of characters at the time, you know, so.
Guys that do their first attempt in the warm-up room to make sure they can do it.
At like the national world level?
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
We had a guy on a world team once that it was a 2-hour weigh-in, and he wanted to jump in the ocean and sit in the ocean for a while because of the salt water, so he would retain more water.
No, this is the kind of shit that I want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
There's
got to be better ones than that.
Here's a stupid thing I did.
Yeah.
I listened to someone at the World Championships in '88 in Perth, Australia. Someone convinced me to spray a little stickum on the inside of my squat suit. My first attempt, the thing fucking exploded, and I went boom, straight over. Then I had to get another squat suit to make sure I made an attempt in. But I listened to someone else, and I'd never done it before.
Well, now this, like where? Like the quad, like the whole inside of the suit?
Yeah, the whole inside of where all the legs and stuff are. So the thing didn't move and stretch out.
Yeah.
And you remember how they used to
explode? Blow anyhow, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a picture of me in Powerlifting USA, and I was completely as far over as you can get in a good morning position.
Yeah.
And it just, whole back of my head was just blood red because it just ripped everything off. That was my fault.
No, that's a good one.
That's a good stupid moment.
That's a good one.
I used to, for the most part, I didn't watch a lot of people. I just lifted. I don't think I could handle looking around and watching everyone in the warm-up room and stuff like that. I was kind of focused, and I didn't let anyone get to me. I used to have some fun, and that's about it.
Most of the time you were on day one too.
Yeah.
So you didn't really have time.
Any of the lighter guys especially.
Yeah.
But when I walked into the room, I just had it set up. Okay, my coaches for the day too. We would have mapped out exact times on when I would take what. And I would just sit there with a old Walkman on and close my eyes and look up occasionally. I liked someone at my side all the time because I felt more comfortable. And then my mind didn't drift into a negative. And that was important to me.
Did you do mental work?
Just mostly all the visualization stuff. I could feel the weight before I would even lift it or try it. I knew how I had to make it feel to make it successful from the very beginning. And it was all in my setup. When I did 1019, when I walked up, when I started getting underneath the bar, my right ab cramped. And it wouldn't let go. And I'm trying to push my abs out and try to make it pop and relax, and it didn't. So I just braced harder, and I think it made me brace harder to where it was a better lift. Yeah. Where I didn't forget not to brace on the way down.
Well, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
With shifting the topic here to Swiss, because it's, you know, Ken, and
yes,
God, you've been almost all of them, right?
Almost. I mean, I remember meeting you and Wendler there. Wendler tells his story.
Oh, that was a good story there.
Yeah, where he didn't like to fly on a plane. Mm-hmm. And you convinced him that he will be the strongest motherfucker on the plane. and I had my stopover in Columbus, and he's sitting on a plane, and then he sees me walk in, and he's like, "Son of a bitch!"
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I remember that one because it was. I remember the conversation because it was exactly like that. I'm like, man, you just gotta. Yeah, it was like, I gotta tell you a secret. Like, if ever I go anywhere, you know, if it's a football stadium or whatever, I sit there and I think, you know what? I probably got the biggest fucking squad in this place. Then I gotta stop for a minute and think, okay, now wait a minute. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Who do I know? You know, but I got like the one at the top. You know, I'm like, so you're guaranteed if you're on an airplane, you got the biggest squad. You walk on there and
that was great.
You know, he comes out afterwards. He's like, "You're not going to believe this shit." And I'm like, "What's that?" He said, Ed Coan was on my flight. I'm like, exception, man. But that was they're so funny, that one, because it was one of the first times that I presented. Man, we're going way back, way back, probably 15 years or so.
And actually, I presented with Mark Filippi. That was the first time I met Eric Serrano. And there's a funny story because when you meet Eric, you know he's like everybody's buddy right away. And his Puerto Rican accent is so thick that when he starts talking fast, you don't know where you're at. So we were at a little dinner that Ken had before that, and I stood up on a chair a little bit behind Eric. And when he started talking, I started pretending like I was doing closed caption so everyone could understand him. I had a bag of shit that we brought for a booth, right? And it's because they had a little expo area. And I didn't know anything. We didn't know anything, right? So I have this folding table. There's so many things about this that's funnier than shit. I have this folding table with no cloth. Everybody else has got like real booths, you know, like backdrops and shit like that. Jim and I are sitting there with spit cups, you know, Copenhagen spit cup, bands on the table and a bunch of books. And then as soon as the break came, like everybody came to our booth. And before that, Jim's like, man, why don't we have like all that? I'm like, dude, that's like $5,000 for that booth and $5,000 for that booth. And that's you were just starting to roll.
Yeah, we were just fucking sitting there. And then they all come and Jim, we're like, what the fuck are we supposed to do now? And I'm like, I don't know. You know, so Jim says, oh, wait a minute. We can go to the clubs tonight. If we can sell this shit, we can go to the clubs tonight. And I'm like, all right. So the first guy that came up, Jim says something like, I forget what it was, like 500 for everything on the table. Just, boom, we're out of here. We're gone, right? And we just so happened to be at the same club that you showed up to later that night, right? And I felt like such a fucking idiot. You know, you come up to me afterwards and you're like, you know, Dave, look, man, two things I took from that trip. The first one was you can use paper clips for your grip. You know, the finger strength, right? Because you use those little binder clips.
Yeah.
You know, and you were telling me that the most important thing for your grip are the fingers. Yeah. I'm like, okay, that made the whole trip worthwhile. You know, I got that. Then the other thing was the currency exchange. You're an idiot because you keep throwing out these $20 bills and they're American. And I'm like looking at Jim, he's like, you're right. And I would just waste so much fucking, but it was fun. Oh, it was fun as hell. It was fun as hell. And that guy, we're going back a long time, but I think you presented at every Swiss. Pretty much. Almost. I think I missed like one. Yeah, there's a couple that I missed as well, but he's bringing it back, you know, to Columbus, and you're going to be there as well. Oh, it's going to be. I would recommend it for everyone. If I wasn't presenting, I would still go. Yeah, because it's the people, and the experience of those people outweighs anybody else in the whole industry. The best of the best are there who know how to fix every problem because they've been through it 100 times over decades and decades. And that's what you pay for. You don't pay for a shiny object. You pay for experience that'll help you move forward or keep you healthy for a longer time or your diet or whatever the hell it is. Someone's going to be there that can help you. I was always really impressed. I mean, there's some people I didn't even know who the hell they were. And then it's like, holy shit. I don't know anything. Well, it expands your network too, because you were still competing when you were first, got into this stuff. So then all of a sudden it's like, no, wait a minute. I can call this person if I tear this, or, or this person to do accessories better for bodybuilding.
Yeah, they've had guys there on sleep, on this, on it's even stuff for women too.
Yes.
It's pretty damn cool.
No, I'm excited about it this year 100% because it's here.
Yes.
You know, it's in the States for one thing.
It's easy for everyone to get to in Columbus,
easier.
Ohio.
Yes, and we don't have to deal with before you know, COVID and all the other stuff. Just getting to Toronto was a pain in the ass.
Especially now. It's still it's still messed up. No, I agree. I would be here regardless.
Yeah.
And you know, I have to bring Hega because there's no way she'd let me go alone. She wants to be here because she loves sitting around everyone and learning.
Yeah. I want to circle back real quick to your meet, the Ed Coan Classic, and because it is a couple of years with that. Do you have a vision for that at all, or is there anything that you're trying to make that into?
We've done it 3 years.
Yeah,
it's been 3.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't ever do it until Brett finally broke me down, and he's the only one that I trusted. Because I know what it's like part of him.
Yeah.
It means a lot to him. So him and Amber, and he has a great team of people that work for him. And it's just a really, really nice, fun meet. There's a lot of people from Omaha and surrounding states that go there, and there's these little rivalries and stuff. But everyone's laughing and shaking hands and having fun. We give out a few bucks. And I'm usually the head judge every time. We have a couple USAPL judges on the sides too. So, but everything's really fair. It's good or it's not. And last year we had no misloads whatsoever. Bonica Brown, she works the scorer's table, and she's like the greatest woman powerlifter of all time. And our announcer is John Hansen, who's a multi-BJJ world champion in Open and Masters. And it's just freaking fun. It's very enjoyable. And it's like an old school lifting contest without all the BS. There's no egos there. Everything's really relaxed. And so everyone has fun. That's what it's about. Where do I see it going?
Well, not where do you see it going? It's another one of these questions that everybody always puts on these things that fucking don't know how to ask it, because it's like, where do you see powerlifting going from here, right? And before answering that, talk a little bit about where you've seen it go from where you started. I think that puts things in better context. So from where you started to where it is now, what are the changes that you've seen, good, bad, or indifferent?
Some of the good stuff is there's so many more athletes, and there's a lot of really cool people. The bad would be the bad part of social media. And then when people get popular and make money, all of a sudden they think they're way better than they are in life. You know, you might be, I don't care what the hell you lift. If you're not nice, you're just a dick. And that starts to happen a lot more. And I really don't like that at all. I'm besides myself sometimes when I look at some of these people and how they act. It's like, who the hell do you think you are? You're just because you lifted weight, that doesn't make you better than anyone else. Okay, you're a better deadlifter, or a better squatter, or a better bencher, but after that you get off the platform, what are you? Nothing. You're just the same person as me. And that kind of ruins it. The really good part is the information that's real that gets to the athletes now, as far as some of it with training and a lot of it with the amount of nutrition stuff and prehab to make sure you don't get hurt, or rehab afterwards. And there's guys there. I knew like Andrew Locke, you know, I've known Andrew for a lot of years, and Ken and Eric and all these other guys that are great, you know, muscle docs there. And these guys come from a place a little bit like where we came from with lifting in their meatheads. And they know a little bit different than what was written in the books, how they learned, because of on-the-job training. And I like that a lot. I wish I had more time to do it, or that I really wanted to do it. You know, you could take 10 minutes out when you're watching TV to lay on the floor and foam roll and then do this band stretch and do this activation or whatever, or, you know, some McGill stuff. And a lot of times we don't do that because we're fucking lazy. And a lot of times what we do is we wait till we get hurt before we decide to do something about it. If you come and listen to some of these guys talk, all you have to do is spend 5 to 10 minutes a day in doing a couple little things that will extend your career or make you have less pain or injuries in the future. And that's probably the best part, is that. And like I said, you know, like I said with the nutrition part, you got guys who are meatheads that do it. You know, Layne Norton, Dr. Mike, Stan. I found more of a vertical diet than I ever did. You know, the first thing Stan did when he started helping Thor and Brian Shaw was he goes, "No, you're already strong. I know you're strong. What do you do outside the gym?" And that was a big change. And that's what started it all. And I think if people paid attention to that would be like their GPP, getting them ready to be healthy, to last longer, and have a good gym training session. We forget that. You know, no more Frosted Flakes and a protein drink before you go work out.
Yeah.
You can only get away with that a few times. You know, that was the old me when I was young.
Yeah.
I didn't worry. You didn't have to.
Where do you see it going from here?
Now, I do see it getting bigger internationally, but it will never, ever get in the Olympics because they have Olympic weightlifting. And powerlifting doesn't generate enough money for the Olympics to want it in there. Never will. You know, some of these other big sports fund other sports that are like-minded like them to be able to be in it. Like track and field they probably have billions in their account.
Yes.
And they help some other little sports out. Do you think weightlifting, I don't know what they have in their account, maybe a few $100 million or who knows. Do you think they're going to help powerlifting out?
No.
Not in a million years.
I think the conversation would be more, they want to see it go mainstream, which becomes a weird one for me because wrestling is not mainstream. I mean, with professional wrestling, but that's not wrestling, right? Wrestling is fucking huge. And it's an Olympic sport. It's everywhere. And it's not mainstream. So I wonder sometimes if first off, how much mental energy lifters are using worrying about trying to have that be that, where it's not going to happen during their career anyhow.
No.
You know, so they're pushing or they're wanting it to be mainstream, which I don't believe it will ever happen, and using wrestling as an example. Not
the way someone would normally categorize mainstream. Now, competition-wise, no, but as far as everybody doing it, yes.
It's already there, I think.
Yes, it's already there as far as what everyone does. I mean, look at your feed and the information you give out to just all sports and regular people. Some people don't want to compete. They don't have to. I don't care if anyone competes. I just want you to be better and happy. No. That's pretty easy. And the powers that be in a couple federations are the ones that'll end up ruining it for the athletes because they're looking at it from an ego perspective for themselves to try to be the man.
But isn't that always been the case?
Slightly, but not to this level.
Oh, so you think it's more, it's greater now?
Yes, it's way bigger now because the sport is bigger. There's a lot more money in it. There's a lot more people, and there's people in it that never even lifted weights before that are doing it all for themselves.
Yes,
they're not doing it for the sport.
Yeah, from the side of people who train the squat, bench, and deadlift, or train like powerlifters. Let's just say that 96% of all of our customers are non-competitive powerlifters.
Yeah.
So only 4%, and Louis was the same way with Westside Barbells. A very small percentage were competitive powerlifters. So there's that, there's the other market right? Where I don't know if that other market even gives a fuck, about the competitive
They don't.
part. They just
Well,
want
they might look at it and say it's cool and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they don't really care about it that much.
Yes. So I think if the lifters looked at it the way that you looked at your career, how can they have the most fun, getting
Then
better
it grows.
year after year after year, and they keep it all in them instead of trying to have other people change how they are.
Yeah, you can't change other people.
Then the sport, I think, would become better.
It will. It's just like business. If you concentrate, if all you're concerned about is making money right away, your business won't grow. You got to make your business extremely sound and productive with good people, and then it takes off. Mm-hmm. You can't do it. You can't put the cart before the horse. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of people do. It's like, no, just enjoy powerlifting, make powerlifting huge by doing what you're supposed to and being nice.
Yes.
And other people will start seeing that and feed off it and say, oh, wow, look how much fun they're having.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, for me, it depends how much I want to engage, right? To me, it can be extremely frustrating when I watch the same process over and over and over with federations or meet directors, or it's like you hear the same.
Why are you doing this again?
Well, the same spiel with a different person, and it's the same fucking result that it's been going all the way back to. I forget the first money meet, which the Powerlifting USA had the guys getting into a limo and there was money. I mean, we're going back 25.
I remember Hawaii used to give out some money for records.
Yeah.
They used to pay for your way, your hotel, and give you some money for if you set records. Mm-hmm. I know that the Hawaii, and that was as far back as I competed there in '85, and they did it then.
But you guys weren't going there for that.
We're going there to compete because you're going to compete either way.
And it's Hawaii.
Yeah.
Which had to make it kind of cool, right?
Yep.
Is that where Hatfield kind of invented the monolift?
Yes, it is. I wasn't at that Hawaii meet either, but he looked at the rules and he figured out a way.
He had a way of doing this too, by the way.
Yeah, where he just took it off the rack, shuffled his feet, and they moved the racks for him. Mm-hmm. That was Fred's hardest part, because in his house all the time, he would do the safety squat bar and not have to walk it out. He would just hold on the straps and do the safety squat bar with these huge amounts of weight. So he never really learned bracing and getting everything tight and learning how to walk back with it. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't a hip squatter. He was a little higher bar squatter. So when it sits like that, the rest of your back doesn't absorb as much as it would if it was a low bar. Mm-hmm. So he was all over the road.
What lifters over a period of time have impressed you the most, with longevity or technique or just lifts that were like, holy shit, that was, I know it's not going to be the weight they lifted, mm-hmm. right? It's going to be either how they lifted it or how long they lasted or the imprint they left on the sport. Like,
there's a few, Inaba from Japan lasted so many years and had so many world championships and Masters World Championships. The other smaller guy is the Fedosenko from Russia, who's still going. And he has like a gazillion world championships in equipment and raw. And it's pretty freaking incredible. Some of the Russians have been incredible with their technique. You have Andre, who was Andre mm-hmm. never knew how strong he was. But then you had Balev and Yuri Belkin. Their deadlifts and stuff were unbelievable. You have back then, Doug Furnace used to help me out a lot. Fred used to help me out a lot because of his knowledge and stuff like that. I knew Louis way before Louis was Louis. Louis mm-hmm. was the first one. When I blew my knee out, and I tell this in the West Side versus the World, is Louis was the first one that called me and sent me a sled and all kinds of stuff for free and said, if you need anything else, just message me. Not even my sponsors at the time sent me anything. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want anything out of it. So that was the real Louis.
Yeah.
guys nowadays, well, Lamar Gant, of course. Guys nowadays, I mean, if you look at John Hack, fucking incredible. The new guy, Dan Griggs, that just pulled that monster deadlift. And, I know the deadlift bars and stuff are different now, but his technique and the amount of weight he's lifting more than anyone else shows you that he is strong.
Yes, yes.
Benchers, I've been around the two big brothers, TD Smash and Irregular Strength, watching them bench, playing with 600 pounds like it's nothing. It's like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Geez, like I said, Banika and Jen Thompson and Priscilla Ribic, those in the USAPL, IPF, they've lasted a long, long time. A lot of these women don't get the credit that they deserve. Geez, who else? I mean, there's really a lot of really good, cool lifters coming up. One of my favorite ones is Derek, Death Grip Derek,
mm-hmm.
and he talks a lot of shit online, and it's freaking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And he deadlifts 900 pounds raw and squatted 821 and benches 500 or something or around there. And he's having fun and he's making fun of people and that's what I want.
Yeah.
So he's going to go further because he doesn't take himself so serious.
Yeah.
As long as someone doesn't talk shit and look like they and have fun online, then I'm all for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys that take themselves too serious, they will not last that long. I mean, I think there's a guy, Atwood. I think he's like 75 kilo who's squatting 700, benching 450 and deadlifting 750 or something raw, drug-free and tested in USAPL and IPF. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Those were world records back in the old juice days.
Yeah.
With a little equipment. So there's a lot of really, really talented guys that are strong, and that's just part of evolution. And I think what most of the people forget is that it's powerlifting. And here's a shirt for you. There's nothing wrong with being strong.
Mm-hmm.
People forget strength. Get really freaking strong. Who sits on the bench because they're too strong? You don't.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Get freaking strong. I don't care if you're fucking an arm wrestler. Get freaking strong. I don't care what you do. Get freaking strong. You got to lift weights. Get freaking strong. It won't let you down. Never, ever, ever. Ever. And you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel powerful. And you feel confident. And that's what'll take you through. If you don't feel those in regular life, you won't make it anywhere.
No, I agree. The older lifters that, I don't want to say over the hill, but that are, I call them washed up meatheads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we all kind of have our own little dialogue that kind of goes on behind the scenes. What advice do you give them, in regards to, because they still love to train.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, ego still, comes into there, and I don't know if that's ever going to completely be tamed.
No.
But
I hope it doesn't.
Yes. So it's, what advice
it holds you to your own standards
yes.
a little bit that makes you do things instead of just doing cardio.
Yes.
I would say do smaller, shorter, little training cycles and set little goals. They don't have to be this, where I'm going to max out. It could be a nice little double with no pain. It could be a set of 5 with no pain. It could be, the thing is no pain.
Yes.
And if you try to train way too hard for too long, shit will pop up. Your body will say no because it can't do it anymore like that. But if you could do really, really short little cycles of like 6 weeks, you can last a lot longer. And then switch an exercise. Go from this kind of squat to a safety squat bar. Go from this, one of my favorite go-tos is that giant cambered bar thing you have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I don't hold it here because I can brace and lock my back in. I hold it down here where it swings, where I feel it swinging on the way down and on the way up. It makes it harder so I don't have to use a lot of weight, but it's more challenging neurologically and to be able to stabilize myself to be able to come up. So I'm getting more out of it without having to go heavy.
And you still have the effort.
Yeah. And so I use stuff like that to make it a little bit harder.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking these questions here is there's washed up meathead powerlifters. They're not the same as, say, the washed up bodybuilder that downsizes then goes into the fitness realm.
Yeah.
They either, will downsize a little bit and kind of do what we're talking about, or they do absolutely nothing.
Which is horrible.
And then end up gaining 100 pounds and dying,
yes.
When they're 55.
Yep.
Where I think that for those, if they would just listen to kind of what we're saying, is I think a lot of them think they have to downsize and become like a bodybuilder. Where
you gotta do what you love to be able to do it. If you don't do what you love, you're going to do it half-ass and quit every damn time.
Yes.
So you downsize, you're not going to be as strong. What can you do? Smaller training cycles that you make up that are fun and a little bit challenging, and then change it.
Yeah. And I would throw in there, for myself personally, I like to try to pick exercises I don't know what's good. So I have no base of comparison to say. So
your ego's out of there.
Yeah. I can't say, well, I used to do this.
Yeah.
Because that's fucking hard, right? I mean, and there are movements like a bench or stuff I'll put in there sometimes, and you're doing a single with something you used to do for 30. Yeah. That's hard it's hard for everybody.
Yes.
It just sucks, right? So I'd rather just not do that.
Sometimes I'll just grab dumbbells and just do dumbbells like. I've had some bad shoulders for a while, especially the right one. So if I bench right when I'm about here, you feel in here, in the shoulder. If you touch the bar, you could feel it. And I can do that, but it'll start at 185, and I'm not happy. But I can do some sets of 15 on dumbbell press with 75s and get a pump and not be hurting, and do a dip machine and do a fly machine and stuff like that. And all of a sudden I got a pump and I feel good, and I just did what I was supposed to for the day, and I felt good. I don't have to do that. You got to be able to let it go, or else you won't be able to progress. And like you said, you're going to quit, and you're going to get fat, and you're going to be miserable and unhealthy and in a bad place in your mind. Yeah. So just, like the difference between, you used to say, I remember a lot of shit, training and working out. If you put a little effort into it, you're training again, and you'll feel really good about yourself. If you just go in there and do like some bullshit exercises, you won't feel, because you didn't put forth any effort that you feel proud of. Yeah. So it doesn't really work that way. It never will. Yeah. You mentioned your knee, and with Louis, I want to pivot onto that a little bit. And how did you come back from that? And first off, what was it? Was it a quad tear? No, I snapped my patellar tendon in half mid-tendon. Yes. I set up too fast. My fault. When I set up too fast, my right leg was farther out than my left leg. So when I went down, my right leg came in and just snapped. If I didn't work out with the old school guys that I knew from Francis, I wouldn't have known how to dump the bar. I could have been dead, because it happened on the way down. It would have just crushed me. My cousin, Dr. David Butler, he's my surgeon, my orthopedic surgeon. So they took me to somewhere right in Ohio, because we were in Chester, West Virginia. And he called the hospital and had the head of orthopedics come down to look at me. And when they did a regular x-ray, just by the position of the kneecap, he says, well, I got to open you up anyways. I got an MRI machine here in the office. So I flew home on the Monday. On Tuesday, I went in for surgery, because he knew he had to open me up. He said it was like putting two ends of a mop together and put the strongest sutures in there, and then any spot around there that looked shady, he added sutures to. And I did my therapy at his office, and so they had the actual video of it, and he told his therapist, my therapist at the time, Mike, he did his doctoral thesis off my knee. And he said, you guys just put your heads together and don't get hurt. Eddie, he knows how to get you back. You know how to get strong. I didn't put a bar on my back for 6 months. And when I did it, I went back over 800 this is before knee sleeves, completely raw knee, without a problem and no pain. I've never had pain since.
So you didn't have to deal with any mental issues with that. It's just, it is what it is. And
I really knew sooner or later that I was going to get hurt. I'm lucky. The story behind that was after I got hurt, when that completely snaps in half, everything kind of goes dead, so there's no pain. So we get to Ohio, and we're in the emergency room, and a nurse started picking up my legs. I said, if you pick up that leg, you have to really, really let it down slow because it can't support itself. And she let it down fast, and it started cramping and cramping and cramping. Then I screamed. And another nurse came up with a shot of Demerol, and I just took her hand and stuck it right through the sweats. They put shorts on me and put them right through it and just stuck it in my leg. That was the only time I had pain. And I never had pain since that time. Nothing.
And what did you squat after that? Or how much was the weight again?
That was 970 was a second attempt. I was going to do at least 1,000 that day, and it was going to be my first 600-pound bench.
Yeah.
And that was just my fault. I was really strong, and I just fucked up my setup. That's all it takes, heavy weight.
Yeah, yeah.
You see people's knees buckle at lighter weights. Doesn't happen. Certain time, law of diminishing returns, it's going to happen, and it did. I went up to a real easy 931 to make sure I could still do it. That was my last meet. And my cousin actually came. It was in Vegas, and afterwards he came up in the warm-up room. He goes, oh, my job's done. It was good. See you later. Went back to gamble. And that was it. I knew I was done. And I was okay with it because I couldn't be who I was.
What do you mean?
I couldn't be the same Eddie Coan lifter that I was before. I couldn't get up to that point. I felt it. I just felt it in my body and in my mind.
Oh, just through the peaking and
I mean, I could have squatted a little more that day.
Yeah.
But I was happy that it was healthy, and I still did 931, and I was good with it. And I was like, see you later. If I can't be the same as who I was, I'm just going to be miserable. So I just accepted it.
Well, it's interesting to me that you had to do that meet after, that injury.
To show myself.
To show yourself that you could come back from it, right? Because that would be a tough one. Like, I don't know how I couldn't process that personally myself. It would be something that you might
be able to if you had it happen.
No, if you have to and there's no other choice, I would. But if there's a choice, it'd be like,
I knew I could do just one more meet to just see.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go 22 something in total and just say la vie.
Yeah.
It was time. And I had started feeling a little pain in my hip, so I had to bend over a little bit more to make sure I got down below. So the writing was on the wall, and I read it.
Yeah. When you're helping other lifters now, it meets, or, you said something about, people send you stuff online and stuff like that. And do you find the same satisfaction in watching them find fun in the sport as you did in yourself? I would say lifting PRs,
but if you don't progress, you won't have fun.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. You got to get better. And if I can help them get better really quick, and they'll see the light and the light bulb will go out. And then I have people that sometimes that keep going too much. I said, no, this is what you did, you idiot. You stopped doing this and you went back to this. That's why you're having a problem. Take your time on your setup. That's usually it. And then, the other thing is don't go heavy so often. You don't have to prove anything in the gym. For me, it was all about building. Base. And I had an impenetrable suit of armor on me that couldn't be broken. And that's why I lasted that long. And like I said, wherever you hit, there's muscle and strength every single where. That's the advantage of all the assistance exercises. I mean, you guys used to make up assistance exercises to find what would work for you, and then you beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
It's really that easy. Is You find what works for you and work it really hard in a logical way. The problem is people don't take their ego out of it, and they want someone to do everything for them. You have to do some of it yourself to figure out your right spot.
Well, I think that also kind of defines how serious they actually take it, yeah?
Sure.
You know, I mean, if they want to just outsource every little piece of it, then
you'll never learn.
Yeah, then I don't know if they're ever really that serious.
No, because you've got to learn your own body, how it reacts to whatever stimulus, and the stimulus can be different from just a half-inch change in technique. Mm-hmm. And that could be like, oh my God, this feels freaking great. Yeah. And that's all it takes. That's what experience can do. As far as if you ask me or you, when you break people's shit down, that's what experience does, is we can look at it from the outside and know how it feels and see something little that will have, oh, if you just do this, it'll do this, this, and this. Yes. And have a domino effect. A lot of these people don't know that because they haven't been taught, because they haven't learned. You got to learn. So just take your frickin' time. Everyone wants to be a world champion and have all-time world records right at once. And it doesn't work that you will not get it, or you will get it and not last. The reason you're in the sport, the reason you're in the gym, is because you love it and you want it to last a long time. So you better take your time and do it right, or else you won't get there. But you don't have a business doing this. No. So why? Love. I love it. And I really, really like helping people. I really enjoy it when I can fix something. I mean, the gift of giving. So I feel really good when I help people. So part of it is selfish because I get to do it. I don't really write routines for people, but sometimes people, if you can ask me a few questions, I'll answer them. But I would have to spend too much time reviewing videotape and talking to you on the phone that I think you wouldn't be able to afford it. It would be too much. And then there's a thing where, I got another business opening up that it's going to do really well. And I don't want to stretch myself like that, because then I won't enjoy it. But you see what I'm saying? You enjoy helping the people. Yes. Which is why you do it. I love it. I love it. And it's very apparent, that you enjoy helping people and you want to see them become better, through strength and getting stronger, especially through powerlifting. And what it does for confidence too. Yes. It's, for those that don't know, that the reason why this podcast was late is, Ed's flight was delayed. Yeah. So I think it's important for people to know that, he flew out here on his own dime, to be able to be on this podcast, to be able to help you guys out, to help us out, to help the podcast out. It's worth it. And, that speaks volumes for you, your character, Thanks. What you stand for. But I also wouldn't be here if it wasn't you. Yeah. I wouldn't do this for a lot of people on my own dime. But, look at it this way, the few $100 it costs for a ticket, some people will spend more than that on a bunch of pre-workout and bullshit supplements than take the time to get better, to learn from people that know better. So for me, it's cheap. Mm-hmm. I can make a difference. I feel good when I make a difference. So it's nothing. I didn't even have to think twice. It's fun. I appreciate it. You're welcome. And the listeners appreciate it. I mean, we go back a long way from, I think you tell a story when I met you at a meet in West Virginia when you were, a kid. You were a little kid. Little fucking kid, man. It was, what was that? Probably first year of college, right? Really? So it was a Mountaineer Cup, which it was the second time I competed. It was a big meet. It wasn't the Mountaineer Cup that Nick Busick had. It was a different one that was before that was like, all those states we used to come to. It wasn't the qualifying. It became like a qualifying where it was class 2 and above. It wasn't there yet. Mm-hmm. It was still a pretty big. It was a big meet. It was, fortunately I had people helping me that were pushing me to go to big meets. You used to see all the best Ohio lifters hanging out at that meet, if not competing too. Yeah, that was one of those, like, you need to go there and, quit going, don't go to the teenage shit, go here. Yeah. And the fucked up group I was training with at the time had this fucking welding glove. I don't know where this all came from, but it was a welding glove that they put a pig's foot in,
and then put it in a cigar box, right? And we called it the claw or whatever it was. Then we'd all piss on it, right? And then chalk on it and ammonia on it. And it would be at every training session. It was like some voodoo shit that was going to be able to help us try to get stronger.
Yeah.
And you signed the fucking box of that stupid thing. And I remember that, like, I can't believe we did that. But that aside, I fucked up my deadlift or whatever it was. And you helped me with my sumo a little bit, after that, which, yourself and Louie, and people like that when I was coming up in the sport. I mean, you guys didn't have to do that, and that little action, going way back, and with Louie and even the people that helped me before getting into the sport, that's why I'm here now.
Yeah.
Is because I feel this strong obligation to be able to give back for what you gave me then.
What you got.
But what I got, fuck, you're the greatest lifter in the world at the time, and it's like,
I'm just a guy.
Yeah, I know.
If I'm not lifting, I'm just a guy.
Yeah. But it was a guy that took 5 minutes.
That you would look at different.
Yeah, at the time did. 5 minutes to be able to show me how to fix my fucking deadlift. And at the time is when I kind of realized, you ain't no different than anybody else. He just wants to see me pull a better deadlift.
Yeah.
And Matt Dimmel was at the same meet. He was back spotting me at the meet.
Lost the boss.
Yeah, I mean, crazy fucking people back then that.
Very.
But, very technically oriented people too. I mean, wild characters for certain.
But lifting was different. That was their sanctuary.
It was way different,
It was their therapy.
100%. Anything that was like, oh, no, you need to do that. You do this. And it was, everybody wanted to see everybody do better.
Yes.
And it was cool, and that's what I hope the sport continues to always be.
You felt the positive energy of people.
Yeah.
And God, it's hard to get back those days. But once in a while, you'll see some of those guys and it brings it all back. And then you just feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, you hope you make a difference, and you did, obviously. we're sitting here now, so I was by no means the greatest lifter. I tried my best.
You became the best lifter you could be.
Exactly.
That's all that matters. People don't get it. They put too much value on a frickin' trophy. They don't realize that your journey is what matters. Like I said before, one time when I was on Mark Bell's podcast a million years ago, is what I got out of the sport with the people I've met is way worth more than any damn trophy I'll ever get.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for finding where you think your best is and then get a little better. I think there's a huge life lesson there where, no, I wasn't by any means the GOAT or all-time greatest or whatever it was.
Because you don't go from here all the way up to the front of the line. Yeah. You've got to earn it.
Yes.
By work and effort.
Yes.
And it's the same way with regular life.
Yes. But everybody can get to where they think their best is and get a little better. It's like 5 pounds, man. That's how I always kind of related to it. Is like, if you can
do 5 pounds a few times,
Yeah. If you can just put 5 more, can you put 5 more pounds on this lift? Well, yeah. Well, then if you can do that, then there's another 5.
And what did you say about the old powerlifting way, the regular round system? The escalating weight.
Yeah.
Well, if I just went up a little bit, I wouldn't have to follow myself and I would have this much more time in between. Yes. That's what that is.
Good point.
It puts you in a different spot and it gives you a different chance where if you know that you have a chance to get better and do better, you won't quit. You'll never quit if you know you can do better. You'll never quit. Because you see that it's positive and you've already done it. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, there's a possibility I could get better. Oh no, I'm just going to quit. That won't happen. That won't happen. Not unless you're a pussy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that though too, but maybe this isn't their space.
Yeah.
Maybe it's somewhere else. It could be a completely different discipline, different sport. Everybody can strive to get better.
Some people do it to have fun.
Yes.
But if you're having, the thing is if you bomb out a bunch and you never get better, it's not as fun.
Well, no, it sucks. I mean, missing lifts sucks.
So you got to make sure that you set yourself up to do that. And that's everything we talked about today, about taking your time and finding yourself. And all it takes is a little bit of extra time to find your own spot with your technique and stuff, and then look at your routine and write it out a whole bunch of times and make sure every week is doable. Then do it. Do it once. Even if it's too light, do it. And then the next time you do it, adjust it a little bit. Then do it again and adjust it again. And all of a sudden, at the end of a year, you might have the perfect routine that you can do that's going to last you a lot of years to make you pretty damn good. Or at least way, way better than you are right now. And that's what we all did. Mm-hmm. I never thought about the numbers. I mean, I did go up to 242 to make sure I could squat 1,000.
Yeah.
Besides that, I never thought about the numbers. I just tried to get better. Period.
You know, what you're asking people to do is to be patient.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't get anywhere. I mean, it's like running down a hill. You're going to fall. Mm-hmm. Walk down, you'll get down. It may take a little longer, but you'll get down. Mm-hmm. No injuries.
How can people go about finding you?
Just my Instagram. What is it? Ed Coan or Eddie Coan? I don't even know exactly what it is.
Pretty simple, right?
Pretty
simple.
Pretty simple.
All right. I want to thank you for having you out. I want to thank you guys for listening. Stuff. And we're going to shut it down.
We'll do it again.
We'll do it again 100%.
And we'll tell some of the really, really backstories. With names left out that, yeah.
All right. Give me one. Then it would be a prelude into the next time.
I was at a meet in Finland. And we were hanging out with a bunch of people, and all these people were getting blasted. And somebody from our team grabbed another lifter from another country, and with one arm, he hung him out by his ankle of like a 10-story building. And the guy started screaming that he was going to call the police. And in his Arnold voice, the guy goes, "I have diplomatic immunity." I won't say his name.
All right, one more.
My first nationals. All right, this is a two-parter. My first nationals, I was 19 years old. My first open nationals in Austin, Texas. And a bunch of the Ohio guys took a bunch of us out to a strip club that I was too young to get into. And one of the lifters that I know, who wasn't really, it was around my age, he was sitting at the front and a girl came close to him and looked at him, goes, and ran away because he wasn't that attractive looking. He was pretty scary. Mm-hmm. At the same meet, one of those Ohio lifters in the stairwell with a 357 didn't get the soft drink he wanted, and he blew it away. He put like 3 shots in it.
All right, you got to keep going.
Ooh.
Blowing shit up is definitely one.
Yeah, that's pretty good. No, I'll leave it there.
All right, we'll shut it down.
I would have to really think of some.
No, we'll give you time next time. Let you prepare it all out. We'll kind of go from there because I know there's a bunch.
Yeah, we can get some cool stuff out of each other.
Yeah, we just need to figure out how to leave the names out.
Yeah, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Well, not really innocent, but
yes.
So we don't get in trouble.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. We are out.
Anything between 4-week-long mesocycle and an 8-week-long mesocycle, and that includes 1 week baked into each at the end for deloading, seems to be generally a good idea for muscle growth.
Nutrition is probably more important for the hypertrophy if I'm looking at the strength athlete, because if they go through that phase that they're supposed to go through that they don't go through, but then when they do go through, they don't go through it effectively,